You feel that? You feel that heat? Because the hot stove is heating up fast. And today officially marks the start of me starting to do my trade deadline videos, trade deadline coverage of Major League Baseball for the season. Now, as you guys know, there's only one trade deadline this year. No more waiver deadline in August. So I expect we're going to see a lot of players move this year. But before we can start talking about this year's trade deadline, we need to go back and look at 2018. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. I'm going to go back and look at the major moves that were made in the 2018 trade deadline and kind of take a look at the impact they made. If you guys want to see me do a part 2 of this and talk about the trades that were after the 2018 trade deadline, like in August, make sure to leave a like on this video. That's the best way to show your support. We get a lot of likes, I'll make another video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new and you enjoy the content. We are just about 11,000 subscribers away from 100K, so if you haven't clicked that sub button yet, make sure you do. Don't miss out on any of the content. Remember to get in the comment section down below. Let me know who you think is going to be traded at the 2019 trade deadline, because your comment might just feature in a future video. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GiraffeNeckMarc. Links in the description. And of course, you guys want to buy some tickets to any sports games, make sure to head on over to SeatGeek and use the code Giraffe to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Now let's start talking about some trades. Now the trade that really got the deadline going, started heating things up, was when Manny Machado was traded from the Orioles to the Dodgers. Now before I start talking about how good Machado was for the Dodgers and what that meant for them, let's quickly go over what the Orioles got back. The Orioles got Osuna and Giles from the Dodgers, a number 90 prospect in Major League Baseball right now, number 4 in the Orioles organization. They also got Dean Kremer, who's number 9, Zach Pop, who's number 19, and Rylan Bannon, who's number 21 in their organization. But we know why we really care about this trade. It's Manny Machado. Was it really worth it for the Dodgers in the end? While he didn't put up the same numbers that he was with the Orioles earlier in the year, he was still a very good player for the Dodgers and definitely helped them get to that World Series. In 66 games, he had 13 homers, 14 doubles, 2 triples, and 42 RBIs, along with stealing 6 bases. He hit .273 with a .338 on base, .487 slugging to give him an OPS at .825. Now, of course, Manny Machado was only a rental, so the Dodgers didn't get to keep him. So they gave up all those prospects to get Manny Machado, who helped lead them to the World Series, but they did come up short to the Red Sox. In my personal opinion, I don't find this as a bad trade. I think it was a move the Dodgers definitely had to make. It's unfortunate because they lost him in free agency to the Padres, but the Dodgers are never really interested in re-signing Manny Machado anyway. So I think they knew exactly what they were doing going into this. I don't see Osuna and Giles being a star kind of player that's going to hurt the Dodgers in the long run. Overall, I think this is a good trade. The Orioles got to load up their farm system, get a guy like Osuna and Giles and some other lower tier prospects, and the Dodgers got to get that shortstop they needed because Seager was hurt, and they made it to the World Series, although they did lose. The next big trade was between the Indians and the Padres. The Padres sent over Brad Hand and Adam Cimber in exchange for Francisco Mejia, who at the time was a top prospect. I mean, what, top 20 in the game? Now, in that Padres loaded farm system, you're not going to find him at the top of their prospect list, but overall, he was still in the top 100. But in the 55 games that he's played with the Padres, he hasn't had much of an impact. Now, he hasn't really received significant playing time on a consistent basis, so that could be part of it, but he really hasn't been the kind of player that they expected, and of course, he no longer has his prospect status, which is why he's not ranked anymore. For the Indians, Brad Hand and Adam Cimber have been 2 really good relievers. Of course, Brad Hand has been a little bit better. He's in the elite area right now. He's been lights out for the Indians. Cimber has been pretty good. He has an ERA right around in the 3s, and for a guy that's going to be kind of a setup role, 7th inning man, that's pretty solid. And Brad Hand's been nasty. He's pitched in 67 games for the Indians, a 2.22 ERA with a whip at 1.062, 31 saves. He's finished out 49 games. His strikeouts per 9 are up. His hits per 9 have stayed the same. Home runs are down. Walks are pretty much the same. So they got a really good closer in Brad Hand, who they actually might even consider trading at the 2019 trade deadline to try to get some more prospects back. Although I do see them holding on to him because they are competing for a playoff spot, and he would definitely help them along in that playoff hunt. So overall, I think the Indians probably won this trade. I think they got the better deal because Francisco Mejia may be a little bit of a bust. I don't know. It still might be too early to judge, but he definitely is a little far behind where we expected him to be. I think the Indians got a pretty good deal here. Following up that trade, we have another one involving a reliever, and this time my New York Mets. The Mets sent over Jerry's Familia to the Oakland A's in exchange for Bobby Wall, Will Toffey, and some international pool money. Now, Jerry's Familia went over to the A's and had a very solid season for them. Did just what he did for the Mets in the first half of the year. He went out there, he pitched well, had a low ERA, pretty good whip. Now, this year in 2019 for the Mets, when they got him back, yeah, it's a completely different story, but looking back on this trade for the A's, he did the job. He did pretty well. Bobby Wall ended up getting traded by the Mets after not being great when he did come up a little bit last year. They traded him to the Brewers along with another prospect for Keon Broxton. Will Toffey's the number 15 prospect in the Mets organization, but their farm system's weak, and he hasn't really been producing at the AA level. But overall, I gotta say, I think the A's won this trade. They knew what they were getting out of Familia, which was a rental, and he performed well. That's all you can ask for. Relievers were the hot topic in the 2018 trade deadline because the next trade involves another one, a top-end reliever. The Orioles Orioles sent over Zach Britton to the Yankees, and they got back Cody Carroll, Dylan Tate, and Josh Rogers. Zach Britton, as we know, has been absolutely fantastic for the Yankees. He's one of the best relievers in the game, in the best bullpen in the game, makes that end of the game for the Yankees just so difficult to get through, so difficult for them to lose games when they have the lead late on. Since joining the Yankees, Britton has appeared in 65 games with a 2.6 ERA, along with a 1.235 whip. He's given up more walks, but also giving up less hits, and surprisingly, his home runs per 9 hasn't gone up either. So the Yankees definitely got a really good pitcher in Zach Britton, especially because they re-signed him after the season. As for the Orioles, Cody Carroll's number 20 in their organization, and Dylan Tate's number 17, so they at least got something back for Zach Britton, who at the time was a rental. But overall, I think the Yankees ended up getting the better deal in this trade. Zach Britton's just been so incredibly good for them. Staying in the American League East, we're talking about a trade between the Red Sox and the Rays. The Red Sox acquired Nathan Eovaldi in exchange for Jalen Beeks. Let's start off by talking about the Rays. Jalen Beeks. In 31 games thus far for the Rays, Jalen Beeks is 10-0 with a 3.49 ERA and a 1.325 whip. He's striking out a pretty good amount of batters. Walks are a bit of an issue. Home runs, average, and his hits are a little high. He's only 26 years old. He has some good stuff. He's a reliever, but it's too early to really make any assumptions just yet. Whereas for Nathan Eovaldi, we can go ahead and guarantee that he made an impact for the Red Sox and is one of the reasons why they won the 2018 World Series. He was great for them down the stretch at the end of the season, dominates the Yankees. And in the playoffs, oh my goodness, Nathan Eovaldi put the team on his back. He probably had one of the most important pitching performances ever in a World Series that ended up being a loss. Eovaldi threw 6 innings in relief that day. That's crazy stuff. All this after appearing in both game 1 and 2. The dude was a warrior. He's coming back from an injury now. He's going to be the Red Sox closer. I think the Red Sox definitely made the right move here, won the trade, although I don't think the Rays lost it. I know there's a lot of trades that I might be skipping over, but I'm really just talking about big impact ones thus far. Staying in the American League East again, I mean, it was pretty active last year. The Yankees got Happ from the Blue Jays in exchange for Brandon Drury and Billy McKinney. Happ in the second half of last year was one of the Yankees' best pitchers. In 11 starts, he had a 7-0 record with a 2.69 ERA and a whip at 1.052. He was striking out batters. He wasn't giving up a lot of hits, keeping the walks down. Happ was very important to the Yankees in the second half. Now this year they decided to re-sign him, and that's been a different story. Happ hasn't been great, but based off that trade last year, he was pretty effective. Now with the Yankees giving up Brandon Drury and Billy McKinney, you would think maybe that did something, but Brandon Drury's been pretty horrible for the Toronto Blue Jays. I mean, almost non-existent. And Billy McKinney, whose name at one point in his career did hold some value, I mean, he was included in the Aroldis Chapman trade, he hasn't been doing much either. So again, the Blue Jays were just trying to get anything back for a guy that they knew they weren't going to re-sign. So I don't say that they lost, but the Yankees are in a weird spot. Great for 2018, but then they made the bad decision to re-sign him in 2019 because obviously hindsight's 2020. He's not pitching well. Finally, out of the American League East, let's go to the National League Central, where the Chicago Cubs got Cole Hamels for the Texas Rangers in exchange for Eddie Butler, Raleigh Lacey, and a player to be named later. That player to be named later was Alexander Ovales or Ovalles, not sure how to pronounce it. The guys for the Rangers, not much to talk about there. They're not really anything important. Again, it was more of a rental move, and Cole Hamels wasn't pitching well in 2018 for the Rangers. Now for the Cubs, it has been a fantastic trade. You gave up absolutely nothing. I mean, none of those guys were going to have any impact for you. None of them were highly touted prospects, and Cole Hamels has been fantastic since coming back to the Cubs. You're starting to see some of that old stuff you saw when he was a part of the Phillies. In 29 starts for the Cubs, Cole Hamels is 10-6 with a 2.71 ERA. He's pitched 176 innings, has a 1.159 whip. He's striking out batters, giving up less hits, less home runs, and his walks have pretty much stayed the same. Cole Hamels has been one of the best pitchers on that Cubs staff, along with Kyle Hendricks and John Lester. He's provided a lot of consistency in a rotation that sometimes is a little bit erratic. So while it didn't necessarily push the Cubs to the playoff glory that they hoped last year, they were able to re-sign him again this year, and he's been really good for them. They gave up nothing for him as well, so I think that's a win in the Cubs book. One of the more quiet trades of the trade deadline last year was between the Diamondbacks and the Twins, and they ended up trading Eduardo Escobar to the Diamondbacks. In exchange, they got Juan Duran, Gabriel Maciel, and Ernie De La Trinidad. Now to just talk about the Twins prospects real quick, Duran is ranked number 8 in the Twins organization, and Maciel is currently 25. But the real story here is how good Eduardo Escobar has been for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now the Diamondbacks don't have a great farm system, so trading prospects is always a little bit risky for them because it's very weak. But they ended up making a good move here because Eduardo Escobar is a really good player, and they got him at a really cheap price after they traded for him. Since coming to the Diamondbacks, Eduardo Escobar has played in 145 games, hitting .285 with a 342 on base, 509 slugging, and an 852 OPS. 27 homers, 31 doubles, 6 triples, and 89 RBIs. I mean, that's pretty much a full season of play, and you tell me that you're getting those numbers for the 3 prospects that you traded? That's really good stuff for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Not to mention, they have an extremely friendly contract with Eduardo Escobar. All this guy Eduardo Escobar does is just hit. He mashes at the plate, extra base hits galore. He's one of the reasons why I think the Diamondbacks are actually playing pretty well this year. He's been a beast in that lineup. That was a really good trade looking back on it. A very sneaky trade. Another trade involving the Minnesota Twins was with the Houston Astros, where the Twins traded Ryan Presley to them. In exchange, they got Jorge Alcara and Gilberto Celestino. Cala and Celestino are ranked in the top 20 in the Twins farm system, but the real story here is how good Ryan Presley has been. Presley had been solid with the Twins, but when he made that move to the Astros, boy did he take off. In 67 games with the Astros, he has a 1.11 ERA and a .696 whip. His strikeouts are up, his walks are down, his hits are down, his home runs are down. Ryan Presley has casually turned into one of the best relievers in all of baseball since joining the Houston Astros. The Astros have some knack of just taking all their pitchers that they get and boom, they just become instantly better when they join that team. Ryan Presley is one of them. Huge W for the Astros in this trade here. Next up, we have the Mike Moustakas trade between the Brewers and Royals. The Brewers, of course, got Mike Moustakas, and they sent over Brett Phillips and Jorge Lopez to the Royals. Brett Phillips has definitely been a disappointment, kind of hanging out in AAA right now. His numbers haven't been great. Jorge Lopez has not looked great for the Royals. Just hasn't been a good trade thus far for the Royals, getting anything back for Moustakas. Now, for the Brewers, Moustakas has been really good. He was great for them down the stretch in 2018, a big reason why they were able to make that push and make the playoffs, and of course the NLCS. And he's been fantastic for them in 2019, having re-signed him after the season. It was a good trade for the Brewers. I mean, they got a really good player in Mike Moustakas, and Brett Phillips and Jorge Lopez have ended up not really showing much, so that's a W for the Brewers for sure. The next trade here is between the Cardinals and the Yankees. The Yankees acquired Luke Voit from the Cardinals in exchange for Voit and Gallegos and Chazen Shreve. Luke Voit, since joining the Yankees, has been a completely different player, one of the best first basemen in the American League, hitting for power, getting on base. He's just completely revitalized his career and become an absolute beast. So you thought the Yankees completely stole from the Cardinals, completely screwed them over, but that's actually not the case. Voit and Gallegos has actually been great for the Cardinals in 2019. In 36 games, he casually has a 2.55 ERA with a whip at .80. So, I mean, while Luke Voit has just been absolutely incredible for the Yankees, the Cardinals also got one of their best bullpen arms in Voit and Gallegos, so a win-win for both teams there. The Astros and Blue Jays also made a trade. The Blue Jays sent over Roberto Osuna to the Astros in exchange for Ken Giles, David Paulino, and Hector Perez. Now, Hector Perez is currently ranked 12th in the Blue Jays organization. David Paulino, not much out of him. And Ken Giles has been an absolute beast at that back end of the bullpen. He's going to be able to get traded this deadline to get some more players back for the Blue Jays, so that was a nice little pickup for them. But Roberto Osuna has been lights out. Now, one of the reasons why Osuna was moved as such a young player was, of course, because of his domestic violence issue. Not a good look, but strictly as a baseball player, he's been unbelievable for the Astros. He's been one of the reasons why that bullpen has been so successful. Him and Presley came in at that deadline and have just completely changed the outlook of the Astros at the end of the game. So it ended up being a win-win here. The Astros got a great closer, and the Blue Jays got a great closer who they're going to be able to flip this deadline to get some more players back. Now, this next trade I'm going to talk about was the sneaky trade, possibly one of the best of the deadline. The Cardinals traded the Rays Tommy Pham in exchange for Justin Williams, Genesis Cabrera, and Roel Ramirez. Now, Williams and Cabrera are ranked inside the top 15 in the Cardinals organization prospect-wise, but I want to talk about Tommy Pham. Now, we know how good Tommy Pham could be. We've seen it in the past, but last year with the Cardinals kind of struggled a bit, and ever since he's gone to the Rays, he's taken off again. He's been a really good outfielder, a fantastic pickup for them. Again, one of the reasons why they've had so much success. In 125 games for the Rays, Tommy Pham is hitting .302 with a .403 on base, .521 slugging to give him an OPS at .924. 22 homers, 23 doubles, 8 triples, and 64 RBIs, along with stealing 14 bases. I mean, in just under a season's worth of play, those are some really impactful numbers for Tommy Pham in the Rays. He's great out in the outfield. You add that bat there in that Rays lineup that sometimes has trouble scoring runs. That's a great move for them, and everyone it went under the radar. It just was a sneaky move, and it ended up being really good for the Rays. That's a huge W for them. I got 3 more trades I want to address in this video. Let's go back to the Dodgers acquiring Brian Dozier from the Twins. In exchange for Brian Dozier, the Twins got back Logan Forsythe, Devin Schmelzer, and Luke Raley. Schmelzer's not in the top 30 as of right now, and Raley's ranked number 26, so not a lot back for him, but it kind of makes sense because Brian Dozier just was not good for the Dodgers when they got him. He struggled a lot at the plate. He wasn't even really playing in the playoffs. He got benched. So in retrospect, while it could have been a great trade for the Dodgers, it ended up pretty much being a wash because it pretty much just had no impact for either team whatsoever. Next up, we're talking about the Brewers getting Jonathan Scope from the Orioles in exchange for Jonathan VR, Gene Carmona, and Luis Ortiz. Now for the Orioles, this was part of their trade deadline 2018, where they just completely revamped that farm system, getting new players who are ranked in their top 30, just trying to load it up as much as possible for that rebuild. Ortiz Yankees is ranked 18th in their organization, and Carmona's 22. Jonathan VR is playing the infield for them right now, and maybe you move him at the deadline this year if you can get some stuff back for him. Now, for the Brewers getting Jonathan Schoop, a lot of people thought this was a great trade. They needed a second baseman. It was a little weird with Moustakas because they said they were going to play Moose at second base, so they're like, you're going to get a lot of guys in the infield now. But they thought they were going to play matchups. But Schoop ended up not really being effective for the Brewers. He barely played in the playoffs. I mean, it ended up kind of being a failure of a trade. The Brewers aren't going to get hurt by this because what they gave up really isn't going to come back to haunt them so far. But they expected more out of Jonathan Schoop, and it just ended up being a complete failure. And then the last and final trade I want to talk about here is between the Rays and the Pirates. You guys know it well because, oh my God, did the Rays have a fantastic 2018 trade deadline, and this was the icing on top of the cake. I mean, just completely fleeced the Pirates. The Rays traded Chris Archer to the Pirates, which was interesting because the Pirates, were you really in it? Were you competing? They were kind of on that fringe, and they made the move that they were going to go for it that year, which, whew, what a mistake, because they gave up Tyler Glasnow, Austin Meadows, and a player to be named later who ended up being Shane Baz. So let's talk about the player that's hurt the Pirates the least right now, which is giving up Shane Baz, who is the number 93 prospect in all of baseball, number 8 in the Rays organization. So yeah, that was the one that hurt the Pirates the least. Keep that in mind. Because Austin Meadows and Tyler Glasnow, oh no, I bet the Pirates wish they had them instead of Chris Archer. Completely two different trajectories here. Archer completely on a downward slope, where Glasnow and Meadows, they're getting higher and higher. Meadows and Glasnow were always top prospects for the Pirates, and it felt like they gave up on them extremely early and extremely quickly. With Meadows, he had played 49 games with the Pirates, and his numbers were good. So it was weird that they just cut ties with him so quickly. At least for Glasnow, he had some injury problems, and his ERA when he had pitched for the Pirates hasn't been great, but he was still a top prospect at one point in his career. The potential was always there, and boy, has he lived up to it in Tampa. He finally turned into the player the Pirates were waiting for. It was just with the Rays. As for Austin Meadows, well, he made the All-Star team in 2019, so that should tell you how good of a season he's having. Yeah, the Rays got some good young players to build around here. Meadows and Glasnow both in their mid-20s. What are we doing, Pirates? They traded for possibly one of the most overrated players in baseball in Chris Archer. So Pirates fans, I feel for you here because you 100% lost this trade. You kind of mortgaged your future to go after Chris Archer, who, while does have talent, just has never lived up to it. Now, there are a lot of trades I didn't address in this video, I'm well aware, but in my opinion, the outcome really just wasn't worth talking about in this video. If you guys want to see me address these videos in a part 2 of the trade deadline for 2018, or maybe talk about them in the August trade deadline video, let me know in the comment section below, as well as leave a like. That's the best way to show that you want to see more of this content and support the channel. Subscribe if you're new and you enjoy the content. If you love baseball, this is the place to be. Hit that sub button, join the team. Remember to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GiraffeNeckMarc. Links in the description. And that's going to wrap up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. The support has been amazing recently. We're getting dangerously close to 100K. As always, YouTube recommends you watch this video as well, as this is my most recent upload. So click through those if you have not yet seen them. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow for some more amazing content.